Zelda podcast. My name is Kady Roberts, and I'm here with my co-host, David Geisler.
Well, hi, Kady. How are you?
I'm doing good. I haven't seen you in ages.
This one, we've had... Yeah, I know. It's so funny because in the last couple episodes, I was just speaking to isn't it great that we're back in a normal schedule and we're just seeing each other every 2 weeks? And then now we've had this anomaly with school and schedules and whatnot where, we did have Carly guest in on an episode, and you and I were going to get together last week and record it, and to record, but I had a scheduling conflict. And yeah, I think it's been almost a month and a half, if not two, since we've sat right here. I haven't even seen you down on campus.
I know. We have, conflicting schedules. It's just so annoying. So, yeah, I had that one day, ages ago where I was lucky enough to pass you on the street. But since then, I keep my eye out for you, and I never see you.
Well, you know what it is? I'm not on campus on Wednesdays anymore.
Oh, that's why.
And I'm only down there on Tuesdays.
Oh, well, yeah. I
That's
don't
it.
go down at all Tuesdays.
Well, we just solved that mystery.
Yeah.
Nailed it. What are we doing today?
Today, we are talking about one of my favorite races in the Zelda universe, I guess.
Sure.
Which is the Gerudo. I'm very excited because I'm currently playing Ocarina of Time. And although I'm not to the point where I've really gotten to interact with them a ton, I still really love them, and I did a lot of research on them, and I especially love them in Breath of the Wild and Tears, so I'm very excited.
Breath of the Wild Tears, they appear in a couple of the games. I have notes on that.
They do.
Some that you haven't played, some that I'm now excited to, specifically they even show up in Four Swords Adventures.
I was going to say, I was reading up on them, I saw Four Swords, Majora's Mask. Some people say they may be in different, referenced in different called pirates or different tribes.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll get to it.
Yeah.
There's a Twilight Princess implication in all of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, we should probably do some listener feedback.
Yeah, sure, sounds good. We have 6 of them today. 3 from YouTube, 3 from Apple Podcasts. Would you like to do one in any particular order?
I guess I can read the YouTube ones if you want to read Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, sure. Let's just go back and forth. That sounds great.
Okay. Do you want to start, or would you like me to?
I'd be happy to start.
All right, go ahead.
Why not? Okay, this is a quick and easy one over here on Apple Podcasts. Hero of the Wild, hashtag a little Korok, sent us a 5-star review and simply said, "Hi, I've never played Twilight, but I have a Wii U, so I hope my parents will let me get it." Smiley face, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 green heart emojis.
That is a lot of love coming our way.
I know, now it's becoming a contest as to how many green hearts someone can put in there. Hero of the Wild, thank you so much for reaching out. I do hope you get to play Twilight Princess on your Wii U. Who knows when it'll be coming to the Switch. It's probably inevitable, but it's probably still a couple years away if we're just kind of judging the marketing timeline of when things will come out on Switch before the next Zelda game comes out. And so if you have a Wii U and you're able to...
I was going to say, hey, if you are having a hard time convincing your parents to get it for you or to help you buy it or just let you, look for pre-used because they're always cheaper and you have a higher likelihood of getting that game.
Well, absolutely. In fact, that's why I just inhaled so dramatically, is because I realized I think the digital store is down on the Wii U now. It happened a while ago. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
So if you haven't downloaded it, it's not available for purchase on Wii U anymore. It would have to be the disc at a resale shop. Mm-hmm. But hey, get it for $20 or something, and it's absolutely worth it. It's a great game to play. I hope you're able to play it. Hero of the Wild.
Mm-hmm. Don't skip out on Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, interesting.
Don't skip out on Facebook Marketplace. I just got a PC, and that's where I got my monitor, and I got a really nice monitor on there for relatively cheap.
That's hysterical, because I never think about Facebook Marketplace for video games, but I also got a monitor from my recording booth behind you from Facebook Marketplace. It was some dude living downtown, and I rode my bike over there and threw the monitor in my bike bag and rode it back.
I go on there, and there's people that sell Wii games or Wii U games. They'll have 20 games, so they're like, just tell me which one you want, $5.
Oh, wow. It's the new rummage sale, isn't it?
Yeah,
which is
pretty
great.
much.
That's cool. All right. Well, Hero of the Wild, thank you so much for that. Thank you for the review. And
I have a Breath to Tears comment from YouTube. It is Season 6, Episode 21 on YouTube. And at Ryan Betts 7295 says, Zelda moved in with Link in Tears of the Kingdom and in classic rom-com fashion promptly made him remove all the geeky sword decorations from his bachelor pad. That's canon. It's in the lore. That is very iconic.
This furniture just won't do. What are these? They're collectibles.
Yeah. No, that is actually now my preferred lore as to why none of Link's stuff is in their house.
Link, do you really need these anymore?
He's standing there with like 10 Koroks. He's like, they're my friends.
They have resale value. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it does seem like, speaking to their relationship, it seems like they have a pretty dang healthy one at the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, a lot healthier than Breath, that's for sure.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, it kind of, I mean, one could assume that they're in some ways like together by the time Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, they have to be. Come on now.
They better be. Okay, I've got one over here from Apple Podcasts again. This is from Heyhizz, Hehhziz, 5-star review. Thank you so much. The title of the review is Amazing. We'll take it. That should be the new show. Season 7, it's going to be another amazing Zelda No, it's not going to work. Another Zelda podcast. Another amazing Zelda podcast. I'm going to ditch this bit.
Sure.
Hayes says, please talk about the remake of Link's Awakening. Wait, we did this one already. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. We read this previous episode, but that's okay. I'm going to do it again because honestly, it's our next episode. So this is a nice. So if this is the first episode you listen to or whatever, please talk about the remake of Link's Awakening, especially make an episode about the amazing music. The music episodes are amazing, and please do more. I would also like to see the music of Spirit Tracks and a link between worlds, because of the actual musical instruments playing a link to the past music. This is by far the best Zelda podcast and has made me want to play more of the games. Well, if there's anything that we can do as a podcast, if that is to inspire people to play more Zelda games, that is super cool. There's an entire, it's like Zelda is part of video history at this point. It spans back 30 years, if not more, 20 plus games, and it really, by playing all the different Zelda games, you also are able to kind of study the history of video games, and that is a really, really cool thing. Yes, hey, this is... though I think we did read your review in a previous episode, today, right now, behind the curtain, Kady and I are recording this Gerudo episode, but as soon as we're done recording this episode, we're also going to be recording our Season 6 finale episode, which will be the music of Link's Awakening. And Kady, I have the files queued up for that one. And
I'm so excited.
We're going to do something a little different for this episode. Because there was the 2019 remake, what I've done is I found all the songs I want to talk about, but I found the 8-bit versions from the original Game Boy.
I was going to ask if you're going to compare them.
We're going to listen to that first, and then we're going to listen to the 2019 remake and see how it was expanded upon.
Awesome.
And that'll be in our next episode. So hopefully you have that to look forward to, and I don't mind that I reread this review. Thank you so much for the 5 stars. Hey, hizzes.
So, heading back over to YouTube, this comes to us from Top 10 Locations to Live, Season 6, Episode 20, I believe. And it is at Buford217. Hey, Dave and crew. Love the podcast so much. Started out on Spotify, but I could tell how much work you put into it, so I joined Patreon as a Magic Sword subscriber.
Ooh.
As I could contribute something. Or so I could contribute something. Excuse me. In short, I'm 52 and came into the Zelda universe with Breath of the Wild, and now I'm completely obsessed. Since I found you guys, I've played Tears of the Kingdom, Link's Awakening, and Skyward Sword. That is exactly the order I went in. So that's kind of amazing. I also just got a refurbished N64 and an OOT card, so I can experience it old school.
Ocarina of Time cartridge.
I have a topic I'd love to hear you guys cover. Currently, I'm simultaneously playing a second Tears of the Kingdom playthrough and Breath of the Wild on Master Mode. I was a little put out on Tears of the Kingdom that you didn't get gems for taking down Silver Bokoblins, Moblins, and Lynels. Also, I found myself thinking, I wish I had Ultra Hand while playing Breath of the Wild, or I wish I had the remote bombs from Breath of the Wild while playing Tears of the Kingdom. How about if you do a show where you make your own custom game from the Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom engine by taking things you like from both games and combining them? For example, maps, the depths, overworld, and or Skyworld, abilities, weapons, monster bosses, quests, side quests, NPCs. Even would you prefer gloom-covered castle or malice-covered castle? Anyhow, love you guys. Bye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green hearts. I
love this, Kady. So I think what we got to do is somewhere in Season 7, we got to throw it in our episode list. We don't normally do episodes like what I'm about to say, but what if we did a fan fiction Breath of the Wild 3 episode?
That would be so fun. Yeah.
Want to try that? Where maybe we pull some mechanics back in. Maybe there's new ones. And we could in some ways that might honor here what our listeners are looking for. What was their name again, or at least their screen name?
Let me go back to it.
Yeah, no problem.
It was Buford 217.
Buford 217. So
yeah,
cool
I
too.
really like that idea.
This is such a great story because this is really interesting. So you're in your early 20s. I'm in my early 40s, and Buford's in their early 50s. But you and Buford are having similar
I was gonna
exposure
say, I think
to
we
Zelda.
went the exact same way, except I think maybe Link's and Skyward was switched.
Sure, but still, it's like
still,
the
the
same
exact
four
same
games,
thing,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like the stuff on Switch.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting because I've said this many times on the show. I'm so grateful to have you as a co-host now because we have this distance between us and we've experienced the games in different ways that it really speaks to all the different ways someone can be a Zelda fan. And here's Buford, someone who's 10 years older than me, experiencing it technically maybe the way you are right now as far as exposure goes. That's so cool.
No, that's really cool. Buford, thank you so much for writing in. It's really cool seeing that you have that same experience, even though you are older than me, because I always feel like not truly, but that kind of like fake fan type thing, because it's like I'm coming into it so new. So it's really nice hearing someone else having that same experience and kind of connecting with that.
100%. And Kady, since you said that, like, never ever feel that fake fan thing. There's no such thing as I mean, I hear you and I appreciate what you're saying, but never feel guilty about having the kind of fake fan syndrome, because a fan is a fan and it's just about the exposure that they're into. And a lot of people were introduced to Zelda with Breath of the Wild, and so I think your experience is completely authentic. It's all good. It's like it's those nerdy, push the glasses up, like, well, actually, you haven't played these 5 games. No, that's not a thing.
I was gonna say it's been very cool coming into the Zelda world, because with a lot of different fandoms, it is a lot like that. There's a lot of gatekeeping, a lot of like, well, you don't know this stuff or this lore. But coming into Zelda, I haven't experienced any of that. And it's all been like so welcoming, so it's kind of cool.
I have also had similar experiences with the Zelda fandom, and I think that is one of the special things about the game and the community and all of it. And also, I mean, let's face it, Zelda or Nintendo's so fast and loose with that timeline that you can't take too much of it too seriously anyway. And it's just fun. It's just, it's just fun to like things, and that's all great. I do want to say that I also had my own moment. Buford spoke about like, oh, I wish I had the bombs and tears, or I wish I had Ascend in Breath, or whatever Buford said. We are both actively playing Ocarina of Time 3D right now to prepare for our Season 7 premiere episode, in which we'll be reviewing Ocarina of Time 3D. I'm very excited. We haven't done the last time. We're due, and I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to discuss one of the most influential games, one of the only games in history to literally receive perfect scores when it came out. I'm so excited to discuss that game with you in a couple months. So I'm also playing it right now. And the other day, I was in the fire dungeon, and my muscle memory was like, okay, well, I'll just ascend up out of this dungeon. And I was like, wait a second. Oh, wait, I can't even do that.
Yeah.
In Ocarina of Time, a game from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It does happen a little bit. Anyway, so that's all cool. Actually, I don't have another Apple Podcasts here. It was a duplicate of the Link's music one.
Okay, so I can just do.
Is it 10 Places to Live?
It's the very bottom one.
User VE7? Because I'll read it. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
No, but it's to you. You read it. I just saw it.
Yeah, it's another top 10 places to live on YouTube at user-VE7V08QP7F.
It really rolls off the tongue.
It says, "Hey Kady, I'm writing this to thank you for your encouraging words of confidence about auditioning. I was on the fence about doing it, but your quote-unquote speech really helped me see confidence and try for it, so thank you for the help. Love the show. Am Zelda nerd."
Amazing. When were you speaking about this? Obviously, the previous episode. Just auditioning for video games voiceover or plays?
Yeah, to be completely honest, I don't fully remember. But I think it was me talking about auditioning for this. Maybe it was also like auditioning in general, because I think I was talking about with voiceover auditions and things, how like you just never hear back, but you just got to keep going for it.
It's a lot of spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually, it's kind of funny. I was just organizing some of my files this morning, and just folders and folders of voiceover auditions.
Yeah.
That I was like weirdly going through memory lane over the last 2 years of just 90% of them are just dead ends, and it's just what it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say I upload every single thing I record to Google Drive just so I have it just in case.
There we go. Yeah.
And yeah, I looked at it the other day, and I have like over 200, 300 just from like the past year or two.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, but that being said, never think of that as discouraging, and I'm glad that you found something from that, because you should always keep going at it. If it's something that you love, you should never be discouraged, and should never let someone put you down or say that they don't think you're good enough, because you're always good enough for yourself.
Absolutely, I agree. And we have spoken about you auditioning for this show a few times on the show. I know that, and perhaps it was about that, and just in general. There's I don't want to get too mushy, but there's this song that I'm really in love with, and it's just a double negative play. But there's some lyrics in there that I use as motivation. And the song, it's by this like Swedish artist. The song is called The Cuckoo, the COOCOO. And it's supposed to be about like trying to feel cool or whatever. And there's this one part in the verse where she goes like, "Don't." When it's like if you're scared to do something but you know you want to try it, she just basically like has this mantra of like, don't try it, never, don't do it, never try it. It's obviously just double negatives.
Yeah.
But like every time I hear it when I'm like waking up in the morning and listening to my morning playlist, it's a nice little kind of like fun little way to be like, yeah, that's right. No, actually just go for it.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that's nice.
So, the Gerudo.
The Gerudo.
We've spoken about the Gorons. We've spoken about the Deku. We've spoken about...
You talked about the Yiga.
Well, okay, so this is actually more of a complimentary episode to the Yiga episode, isn't it?
I would say it's probably closer to the Yiga.
Because you know what? I'm actually now, my memory is kind of filling in here a little bit. We've done favorite Gorons, favorite Deku, favorite Zora.
Yeah.
But actually, earlier this season, it was like the 5th or 6th episode of this season, Dan and I did a deep dive on the Yiga clan. And I did not build a favorites episode here for Gerudo. This is not a favorites Gerudo for me. Is that what your notes are? No.
No, mine's kind of the history and the culture of the Gerudo.
I think we're deep diving.
Yeah, I think this is a deep dive.
We're deep diving. Wonderful. So this is kind of a cool like sibling episode to that first one that I did with Dan. All right, I'm into it.
Sweet.
Where do you want to start?
I guess we'll just start from the top of like who the Gerudo are, but they were based on. So obviously the Gerudo, when they were put into Zelda, they were based on the Amazons, like the all-female warriors. You might see like Wonder Woman is put in with them, and also a lot of kind of west or like Eastern and like South African, excuse me.
Sure.
I cannot talk.
No, I get it.
Middle Eastern and South Asian people. I'm so sorry.
I see.
And use with a lot of like the culture and things like that. However, I do kind of want to say right off the bat that when they were first created and put in Ocarina, there was a lot of skepticism about them at the time, because it was kind of the way they're portrayed was not the best towards those kind of people, in the sense that there was like a lot of big racial stereotypes around like the mysterious and conniving and thievery, and a lot of people also were saying, no, you're kind of putting Link in this white savior complex with the Gerudo. So I just want to say that off the bat, get that out of the way.
I concur, though. I mean, it was, we've spoke, as much as I just kind of said I'm so excited to talk about Ocarina of Time with you. Kate and I, other co-hosts and I, you and I a little. Well, we haven't really had this opportunity yet because, once you're done with Ocarina, we'll be able to have this conversation. But where video games were in the mid-'90s, or where culture was in the mid-'90s, where exposure was and acceptance was in the mid-'90s, was different.
Exactly,
and it's easy to forget that that's almost 30 years ago. And there's a lot of things in Ocarina of Time that speak to the time that it was made. And I think that there's a couple archetypes and themes that are maybe less than comfortable these days.
Exactly.
And I think the Gerudo do fall into that a little bit in Ocarina specifically. And if I may, I don't want to jump ahead too much.
Absolutely.
But I think Nintendo's really done a good job when it comes to Breath, and as they've evolved they've matured the storytelling or the lore of this I guess race. Is it?
Yeah, some people call them their own race. Some people call them their own tribe. It kind of just depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Because I guess Nintendo has used both terms when talking about them before.
I guess the semantics are like, is a Hylian, because they have pointed ears, is the Hylian a different race than a human, or is it a literal different, pardon me, but like living creature, like animal?
Yeah.
Is it a different... You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's okay for us to basically speak of all these different... things as races.
That's what I always do.
I'm okay with that.
I think it also might just be the D&D in me of like, I just assume like a Leon or Leonin, the lion type creatures and like the cat creatures are two different races in my brain.
Races. So like a Zora is a race and a Goron is a race. Yeah. They're not different animals or whatever. We're just gonna let's use that as our vocabulary.
So I'm just gonna use the term race.
Cool.
But yeah, so obviously Ocarina was the first time that they technically appeared in the games, but a lot of people like to theorize that they actually originate from Skyward Sword. even though it came after their release, they like to think, since Skyward is technically the first in the timeline, that Groose is actually
we're going there.
The person that started the Gerudo. And I'm not gonna lie, when I first played and I saw Groose, I thought the same
You got big red hair.
Yeah, he's much taller and stronger than the people around him. He's got the red hair and golden eyes. And it also kind of adds to like the one Gerudo male born every 100 years.
Yes.
Like he's the only one that looks like that. Obviously it's all a theory, but I think it's fun.
It's never confirmed in game, but I think one could say that it's heavily implied.
Yeah, I really like to think it is. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Groose stays down on the land, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
who knows?
And obviously, when the old woman is like, "Oh, you have like a destiny here," or something. So she's talking about him helping Link, but a lot of people also have been like, "Well, maybe it's like a double meaning of him staying in like the timeline or whatever." But...
Yeah. And one of the things about Gerudo is that so Ganondorf is also Gerudo in Ocarina of Time, but there was a little bit of retcon there. Well, Ganondorf
and Ganon are kind of two different beings.
It's true. Ganondorf was, I believe, referenced in like A Link to the Past. Ganondorf, the humanoid, but you don't see that. You only see Ganon in those first 3 games. Ganondorf in Ocarina is the first time you see a humanoid Ganon, because he's a big pig monster otherwise up to that point. Though I think there is a Ganondorf reference in A Link to the Past, like I just said. However, there's a little bit of retcon. Ocarina of Time, in release order, was the first time that the concept of the Gerudo was even presented. And so are we to assume that the Ganon from Legend of Zelda, well, I guess those aren't in timeline order. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to go there. We've got Ganondorf, who is a Gerudo as well. He's the only male Gerudo that's ever been represented, if not Groose.
Yes, if not Groose. And with that, a lot of people, including myself, although I don't think Nintendo ever would do it, because it just deviates so far from what we know to be Zelda, a lot of people think it'd be really fun if there was a game that came out where Link happened to be the male Gerudo that was born, and kind of the tables were turned in a little bit of a way.
Are you referencing our Zelda 3000 episode?
No, I wasn't. And that just also must be something that you guys talked about.
Really?
Yeah, that's just something that I really like the thought of.
I feel like we've mentioned this season at some point.
I probably brought it up, and you probably said that same thing. Did you mention it?
I'm not going to go on a whole thing, but there's a Studio Demands It episode where TC and I were tasked with making a new Zelda game, and we surmised, or we proposed, that what if the hero wasn't necessarily Hylian? What if the hero, with our new story we were telling, let's have the hero be Gerudo, and we shifted all the Triforces on all the different characters. And so, we had a red-haired, quote-unquote, Link, who was Gerudo in the game that we built, The Legend of Zelda 3000. If you're interested in the storyline we came up with, I've definitely plugged this in the past.
Yeah.
Go check it out over on Studio Demands It. The Legend of Zelda 3000. It's a silly name. We just did it to, like, have it be, because, there was a request to have it be steampunk and all of that. But sure. Also, to that point, if Groose were Gerudo, big if, we've only experienced, a male Gerudo, there's like it's in lore that there's this genetic situation with the Gerudo that for some reason a male is only born every 100-ish years.
Yeah.
And it is part of canon that it's like a genetic thing. It's part of the race or something like that. It's not like a magical experience. Though, maybe it is a little bit magical because in Breath of the Wild, the Gerudo talk about how there hasn't been a male born in since Calamity, right?
Yeah, I was gonna get into that, but
am I jumping forward?
That's fine. Where a lot of people think that there's like this debate, right? Of is it that one Gerudo male is born every 100 years, or is it that one Gerudo male is born after Ganon dies,
or after that male Gerudo?
Yeah,
passes,
basically,
right?
Can no two male Gerudos be alive at the same time?
Which would imply that it's more magical.
Exactly, and I kind of prefer that. That's how I always thought.
Yeah.
I was watching a YouTube video. I'm so sorry, I can't remember who it was, but they were basically talking about.
Was it Zeldum?
Maybe.
It's okay if it wasn't, but that's Andy, who's part of our show. Yeah, okay.
But basically talking about it could be that, or it could be a much darker alternative of like they got in the habit of just like killing any Gerudo male in case he's Ganon. And that's why we
Oh.
don't see any Breath of the Wild. I don't like that thought. I don't think that's true.
That one's borderline fan fiction. As far
Yeah,
as I'm
that one's really
concerned.
dark. I prefer the thought that it's just like there might be some magical undertones that like only one can exist at the same like at once.
Yeah. You know, there are some. Ocarina was like only a. Well, Zelda loves 100 years. All
Yeah.
Zelda games love everything. Every single stinking thing. You're like, we haven't had a sip of soda in 100 years. Like everything's always 100 years in
Yeah.
Zelda games. It's just a number they like to use. But yeah, in Ocarina of Time, it was like only one male comes every 100 years, which really is only about 2, maybe 3 generations anyway.
Yeah.
But if it's every 100 years, it could just be the extended lifespan of a single person, and then that person passes and another male Gerudo comes to be. But I
Yeah.
like the idea of the magical thing, and I think Breath of the Wild leans into that a little bit, because if 10,000 years have passed and there hasn't been a male, well, wait a second then. If it's genetic and all the Gerudo women are marrying other races, wouldn't that gene be kind of evolved out? I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, maybe it is magic then. Maybe it's even more magic then. Because
Yeah.
I actually learned this. I didn't realize this, but the Gerudo, of course, don't worship Hylia.
Exactly. I was going to talk about that too.
Let's do it.
So in Breath of the Wild, you can meet a woman called Mava, who's like an elderly Gerudo, and she specifically says, like, you can find her by the statue, and she says, "Oh, the goddess statue has been here since before I was even born. No one here really believes in that stuff anymore, though, so they tend to avoid stopping here."
You have not gotten to this in Ocarina yet, but there's when you get to the, oh gosh, I think, yeah, the Spirit Temple. The whole dang thing is a big old statue of the goddess or whatever that the Gerudo worship.
Yeah.
And so when you get there, take note.
Yeah, and even in Breath, although we don't know if people genuinely believe in them, there's like at some point clearly they believed in like the 8 heroines because of all those statues.
Yeah. The 7 and the 8th one over there in the hills and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, so that's their kind of like religion, which I didn't really realize. You know, we get so busy talking about Hylia and all those different gods that are making things that sometimes it's easy to forget. And I actually really, really like that there's a completely different faith-based
Yeah, kind of
system
pantheon.
inside the canon.
Yeah, it's really cool. But going to their canon first appearance
Yes.
is Ocarina of Time. And they're obviously presented as these like band of desert thieves. However, they're not necessarily evil. You do fight them, but it's more because Ganon's their ruler, so they just kind of do what he says type thing. Except for, obviously, Nabaru, who ends up kind of usurping Ganon as a
Yes.
sage.
I've always said Naburu, but I'm not sure.
I don't know how
Yeah.
it's pronounced.
No worries at all. But she's kind of a main character that you meet in Ocarina, that you deal with while you're going through the Spirit Dungeon and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it also kind of calls to this, some of the older trends of how, like, the male Gerudo was always the ruler. Whenever he was born, he was the one that was the king of power.
I know.
A
little bit. I know.
Which, I mean, it's something you see in a lot of fantasy media.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like, like 30 years ago when they do these dang things. Like it's it's very common. And I honestly was gonna say it would be kind of cool if, obviously we don't see that tradition in Breath or Tears, but if we did ever see a Link that was Gerudo, seeing him also take the form of a prince, and kind of having that flip, so he also has kind of Zelda's role in a way.
Oh, interesting.
Which, I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I would say the Gerudo. So another thing to speak about with the Gerudo's introduction, and then we've got about 5 minutes here, and maybe we can go to break and kind of dig into some of more of the appearances and what, how they are established in all the different games. But so this is the first time you and I are talking about kind of Ocarina-ish stuff. We haven't had that opportunity yet this season, but over the years, we're just about to finish our 6th season here. Over the years, one of the kind of themes that kind of keeps coming up with Ocarina of Time is that game was amazing and spectacular, and while it was being built, it was really kind of being built in many ways game first, story later. And it was like, all right, how about we have some thieves? And all right, we made this cool female model. Sure. Copy paste. We got a bunch of female models. Yeah, why? Well, how about this?
The Amazonians.
That'd be cool. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say it, but and not to take anything away from Ocarina of Time.
Well,
but
no, not at all.
They were making, for the time, they were making this epic game, bigger than any game could be conceived of at the time. And okay, fine. There's stuff that was happening on PlayStation at the time that was, one could argue Final Fantasy VII is larger technically, but this game that was certainly the largest thing Nintendo had ever made, and there was I did do a behind the scenes episode of the making of Ocarina of Time, and the biggest thing I learned is that they pivoted over the course of 3 or 4 years of making this game. Every 6 months, they were like hard pivoting on what the game would even do, how it even worked, because they were creating the technology of how to even make a 3D game. Along with Mario 64, they didn't even know what this game would feel like or look like. They were still trying to figure out what a game in 3D even was.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of I usually do afford a lot of exemptions and excuses with Ocarina of Time lore. And I think that one of the cool things is that Nintendo's taken some of the seeds that was planted in Ocarina, and they've taken that lore and they've turned it into proper lore in the coming games. And maybe we'll speak to that later in this episode.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of storyline of like, oh, we got a bunch of women thieves out in the desert. I don't think we have to read into it too much for Ocarina.
No, absolutely not. I just really did like the idea of, what our potential third game that we create, that the flipping of the Triforce of like Link being like the prince and Gerudo, and kind of just flipping it all on their heads. But yeah.
Well. Okay, let's table that for now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then kind of tying back to what we were talking about like maybe it's no two male Gerudo can exist at the same time. Another thing that's just kind of video game logic, you gotta accept it, is that Ganondorf has 2 surrogate moms who are witches.
Yeah.
But because of that, a lot of people think that's why he lives so long is through magic, and that's also why, like, because correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't played these games, but he lives through like Majora's Mask and stuff, and that's why there's not another male Gerudo, is because he just has continued to live so long.
I subscribe that the Ganondorf that shows up in Twilight Princess is the same Ganondorf that's in Ocarina of Time.
People think that too, with his execution.
It does line up in the timeline.
Yeah.
And Majora's Mask is between that. Well, actually, no, Majora's Mask is part of the child timeline, which is a different thing. But Twin Rova also can materialize as a single entity. In fact, she appears as a single entity in Ocarina at a certain point. I don't want to spoil too much. And so maybe we could backwards logic that one where Twin Rova, through magic, split herself into these 2 witches, because they also have opposing elemental magic, And so maybe if Twin Rova is his actual... Wait, surrogate mother, you said? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that works. But I do know that that Twin Rova and Kome and Katake, the witches that come from Twin Rova, they are like hundreds and hundreds of years old, and Gerudo don't normally live that long.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of magic going on
Ganondorf lives so long between those like 2, potentially 3 games.
I guess the only thing is...
I think in Ocarina he's already like 117 or
Seriously?
Something. Yeah, I could be wrong about that.
No, you might be right. Maybe I never noticed.
Yeah, I'll check in between the break, but I think when I was doing my research, it said he was like already 117 in Ocarina.
And maybe it would be fun to imagine that he's doing that on purpose, or Twin Rova's doing it so that he can stay the king.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Interesting. I never thought of that.
And then that's exactly why there's no other male Gerudo, because he continues to live, and that transfers over to Breath. Everyone being in Breath, why is there not another Gerudo? And then you find out later in Tears, obviously he's still technically alive.
If the Breath Ganondorf is the Twilight Princess Ganondorf, and the Twilight Princess Ganondorf is the Ocarina of Time Ganondorf,
then never
yes,
died.
This all lines up.
He's just you can't kill him. He's here forever.
I don't know. Tears. I am playing more and more of Tears, and it does take some liberties and some hard left turns that may or may not support that. But I'm into this. This. Let's see. Yeah. So the idea of the Gerudo in Ocarina, I love it. I get it. They were a lot. I don't want to talk about it too much, but it's fun when you meet the Gerudo.
Yeah.
They're a little difficult to get to. When you're there, it's the first time in the game where you really feel like, oh, the ante's been upped a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for you to get to that point in the game. They don't appear in... No, they are in Majora's Mask, but they're pirates in Majora's Mask.
Mm-hmm. They are.
Which probably, again, is gamey-wamey because Majora's Mask just doesn't have a desert.
Yeah.
So probably the designers were like, oh, we want those Gerudo. Put them on a pirate ship. Put them in the Great Bay where the Zoras are or whatever. You know what I mean? I get it. They were running out of space, running out of time, and I'm okay with that. There are the game limitations sometimes brings creativity, and so they are almost literal pirates in Majora's Mask. And I never felt like that was like the same Gerudo. I never felt like they had moved from the desert in Ocarina. However, there is one canonical thing where in Four Swords Adventures, the Gerudo are kind of in the deserts, just living in they're kind of nomadic.
Yeah.
And I think that is canonically the same Gerudo there that would have been in Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess does not have any Gerudo.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. You kind of feel the absence a little bit. But you do have a dungeon where the Gerudo probably were, but they're gone. And in the Nintendo timeline, Four Swords Adventures comes after Twilight Princess. And so story-wise there, if we're going to do some of that lore, even though sometimes I shy away from lore, the Gerudo... in Four Swords Adventures, they basically speak to how, like, because Ganondorf he gets banished. And I know you haven't played this game, so I don't want to do too much about it.
No, I know that he gets
banished.
He gets banished. Yeah, I know all that.
They lose faith in him, and they say, that's it, we're just going to go do our own thing. And so then in Four Swords Adventures, they're doing their own thing.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is, like, they probably just, either they were banished, which I don't think they would have been, because you could see them celebrating at the end with people. I think that they just decided to leave and kind of start up their own place. I imagine there weren't great memories there.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, interesting. But in Breath of the Wild, that's the only time we see Gerudo actively speaking about also literally partnering up with, like, other races. Yeah. Which I thought I kind of liked.
Yeah, and it also goes into a lot of people were thinking genetically why in Ocarina their ears are round, and then why in Breath their ears are pointed. Because of just genetically... they all have now descended from Hylians.
They mix them with the Hylians, yeah. It could be it, yeah.
Yeah.
So and where does the magic follow? The magic DNA. Where does the magic DNA follow?
Yeah, they just happen to have the ears now. It's just genetics.
Wait a second. So when we see the kid Gerudo in Breath of the Wild running around, where are they coming from?
Maybe they're all over with Ganon. Who knows?
Because it's not like you don't have, like, what's the two that get together in Terrytown. I forget the guy's name. What's his name?
It's just
Bonson or something.
Isn't it Terry? Or no, that doesn't make sense. It has to have a son at the end. Maybe it is Bolson.
Maybe, I don't know, but, like, you don't have, like, a Gerudo with, like, a big round haircut running around or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe we don't have to get into that too much. Maybe we take a break and catch our breath here and then kind of come back. I don't know. How are you feeling?
No, that sounds good. I personally think that's what happens, though, because also in Ocarina they don't like outsiders. They're not leaving. So, I mean.
Wait, what do you mean?
Wait, am I wrong?
You've got a weird look on your face right now.
I just mean if, like, they aren't doing in Breath where they're leaving and there's only females and there's one guy but there are children.
It's like a lion pride?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking.
Humans, well, maybe they're not human. Maybe there is magic, but human DNA doesn't work that way.
I don't know. I have no clue, man.
Oh my goodness.
I think we need to take a break.
I mean, maybe. All right, cool. Let's reset. We'll come back. Yeah. This is getting pretty crazy town. Sounds good. I'll see you in a minute.
It's the first day of school, and I'm walking around downtown Chicago with hundreds of other students. Everyone's getting back from summer break, and you can tell that they're happy to see each other after a couple months. For me, however, it's been a little longer. Hi, I'm David, and I want to introduce you to Returning Student, a documentary podcast that I've been making about my return to a college that I left 20 years ago. I'm back in the same city, at the same school, the same student ID number. Everything else feels completely different. My fellow classmates are literally half my age. My professors work in my industry. Sometimes I wonder why I've come back at all. But then I get the opportunity to sit down with one of my professors and have a conversation with them, which usually yields a little bit of wisdom. You can find the show on all major podcast providers, as well as our website, returningstudentpodcast.com. A lot has changed over the past 2 decades.
We are back talking more about the Gerudo. However, we are going to pivot to some other games now.
Yeah, Katie, this episode's going a lot different than the Yiga Clan episode.
Yeah. So sorry, man.
Well, we never even got into gender of the Yiga Clan when we did that episode. You know, they're all kind of androgynous. You have no idea. They could be male or female under those outfits they wear.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing for the Gerudo, though. I feel like it's kind of inevitable to talk about that because... I mean, they make such a big thing about, like, only women and, like, the only one male and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, we talked a little bit about some of the other games. I really wanted to touch on Breath and Tears.
Sure.
Because that's where I first saw them and was first introduced to them, and I fell in love with them. I think they're so cool. And I think in Places to Live, I mentioned, like, they were, like, up top for me, like, wanting to live there. So obviously they're back in the desert. They're back in their little land. Something really cool about the architecture, just touching on it really quick, is the fact that they have water on the top, which kind of helps keep the area cool.
Yeah.
Which is just such a cool thing that Nintendo thought to put in. They took a lot of time on that.
Yeah. Yeah. In Gerudo Town, in Breath.
Yeah. Yeah. But obviously it's only women. Link's not allowed in, even though he is technically like the savior and all that kind of stuff. So you always have to dress up until you get over to Tears. You help them out, you're good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they'll allow exceptions here and there when one proves themselves.
And a lot of that is because of Riju, which is the ruler in Breath of the Wild, and I guess Tears as well, which kind of immediately makes them very different from the previous incarnations, because not only is Riju a female that's ruling them, but she also is a part of a long line of women that have ruled.
Yeah.
Specifically, she's 12 in the first game. I think she's like 15 or 16 in the second one.
Seems about right.
And she talks about how she became the leader because her mom unexpectedly died. However, I want to say, like, Urbosa is not her mom, because she mentions that her mom died not long after, like, before Link showed up. But that being said, Urbosa may be related to her in the sense that she might be her like grandma or great grandma, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, now I'm starting to think: do the Gerudo do they actually normally live for about 100 years? Do they live a little longer than normal?
Yeah.
Or than what we would expect for a human lifetime?
From what I was seeing, they said that they live about the same as like a normal person, at most like a century.
Okay.
Although who knows? Because we aren't specifically told. That's just what people have assumed.
Right. Some remember the Calamity in Breath of the Wild, just like the Zoras. But the Zoras we know live for like 300 years or whatever.
Oh, yeah. The Zora live forever. They live for a long time. And they still are known to be warriors, even though they aren't known to be like pirates or thieves anymore. Instead, they're known to like be travelers and sell their goods and stuff like that. But they tend to use like the scimitars and glaive weapons and cool things like that. And like we were talking, sorry, I'm rambling.
No, you're good. I'm with you.
We were talking about the way they have children, and so
sure.
it is explicitly said in Breath that how that happens is once they become adults, they leave Gerudo Town and kind of wander around, live their life. They can choose to come back if they want, but they're welcome to live out there with their husbands. And a lot of them do find husbands, live outside of Gerudo Town with them, and just return to sell their goods.
Is that how that works?
It is.
Interesting.
If you talk to some of the merchants, you can get some knowledge about that, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. And
because I used to think for a while, I was kind of like, hey, I love where we're going here in this game. I love what the Gerudo are in Breath of the Wild, but like, not a great business choice to have all of your shops inside a town you only let half the community get into.
Yeah, so that's how that works, where they come in, they sell their goods, and then they go, and they can continue selling outside or just go back to live with their husbands. However, a lot of Gerudo say it is still really tough on the marriage being separated from their husbands a lot.
Well, that's actually cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool that that's being addressed. That's a nice little metaphor in there.
And on top of that, I don't know if you've done the quest line in Terrytown yet, but
the Terrytown in Breath I have, of course.
Oh, I mean in Tears.
Nope.
So this might be a little spoilery.
It's fine.
Because it also touches on the fact that Bolson, I believe his name is. I can't remember what his wife is. So sorry. But they got together. They had a little girl. She's super cute.
Oh, so you see a kid, a Gerudo mixed race kid in Tears?
Yeah, and she just looks like the same as all the other Gerudo kids.
Okay, fine. Sure. They must have a dominant gene then. That's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that happened. Here I was in the first half seeing like, well, how does it work? Okay, cool. This is cool.
And not only that, but there's a specific quest line of Bolson the father being really upset because his daughter's birthday is coming up and she's super excited because I guess when Gerudo children turn a certain age, they have to leave and live in Gerudo Town until they're adults and they cannot leave.
Like going off to school, going off to a boarding school or something.
Exactly.
And there's literally a school in Tears. Okay, interesting.
So I don't know exactly her age. I don't know if they say, but she's basically around 6 or 7 and she's super excited and Bolson's really sad, but the mom is like, it's time, like she's got to go. So some Gerudo women come and take her to Gerudo Town. You can go to Gerudo Town and she's running around having the time of her life. And when you talk with her, she's super excited because she's like, oh, I learned what a vo is. I learned what a whatever is.
Dude.
Yeah. So
I love
it's
this.
cool. It's really cool, but also kind of touches on like how the husband and like father kind of get the raw end of the stick in this situation.
Oh?
Of like, the mom can go in and visit her whenever she wants, and he can't see her until she's an adult.
I wonder. I was thinking about this a few minutes ago. I might be making some assumptions here because this is just an off the top of my head thought right now. But you hear about what work-life balance was like in the 80s and the 90s and maybe even the 2000s, maybe even still for businessmen in Japan. And these crazy work hours to the point where sometimes they're literally, just literally it's like work and sleep and that's it. Some people, and that's sometimes, and there are certain business situations that you learn about. And you could imagine those men in real life speaking about it's hard to be away from my family. I'm always at, it might be a metaphor for being in a corporate job a little bit too. And this might be an interesting way where the game designers or whoever scripted this storyline in Breath, which now is, I hope, and it certainly feels like it's a little bit more mixed representation wise on a gender level. For even the writers and the creators, it might be an interesting way to twist that and have it be a bit of a corporate workplace metaphor, honestly, a little bit too. When the wife says it's difficult being away from the husband, or because I'm working so much, or I'm the only one that can be here. For a long time, certainly, I can speak to American corporate structure where it was a lot of men only, like in the 80s and the 90s. I don't want to dig into that too deep. It was just a thought that came through. But there could be some themes being kind of twisted and explored there. Yeah,
you definitely hit it on the head, I think. I think the Gerudo, what they were kind of originally made to be, and especially what they've turned into, is kind of them twisting on the head of like, kind of a quote-unquote male-dominated society now being like this female-dominated society, and kind of the roles being switched and just kind of putting it very plain in terms. And I kind of really appreciate that in the sense of them showing like, these are the situations. It doesn't matter what gender it affects. Like, it sucks, and we need to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, yeah. There's this whole other thing. I remember I was just speaking to a coworker the other day, and they were talking about, and I don't know anything about this, but apparently on ESPN, the women's, the WNBA finals just happened. Something with March Madness. I don't know anything about this, but it was the women's finals in basketball was the most watched basketball event, pro, college, or otherwise, on ESPN in history.
That's
this
awesome.
Past week. And it was just because, really, quite frankly, I'll just say I don't know who it is at ESPN or who it is in our culture, just never decided that it was important to show women's basketball.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, actually, it's really exciting. So anyway, I don't want, what I mean? I don't want to get into it too much, but like, sometimes there's assumptions, being made.
Exactly.
And there is an interest there. It's, if the story starts with like just gamey-wamey reasons, and then over the years, writers are able to take that and make it a bit more nuanced, I think maybe, exploring some of those themes is kind of cool.
Yeah. No, it is. And then, I mean, we mentioned that we were, well, I said I was going to try and make it kind of like the Yiga clan, and then you said this is nothing like how the Yiga clan episode went.
And not, well, actually, in many ways, maybe it is, because Dan and I
Yeah.
did dive in. It's just I'm realizing how different the Yiga clan is to the Gerudo.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is I think it is funny because of the rivalry between the Yiga and the Gerudo.
Yes.
Which is also very funny because I feel like in a way the Yiga took the Gerudo's place in the sense of they're like the band of thieves living in the desert.
Completely. I completely agree.
So it is kind of cool seeing that, like, the new kind of fighting the past in a way of, like, they were one way, but now they're another, and they're kind of, like, physically fighting people that were that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, really the opposing element to the Yiga really is the Sheikah. So maybe there's a Sheikah episode we have to do as well.
Oh,
But
I would
nevertheless,
love to do the Sheikah.
I'm into this.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to do the Sheikah.
Yeah, I think the Gerudo, I will say, I think the Gerudo over the last 7 years, over the past 2 games, and maybe a little bit before that, I think Nintendo's found the right way to go with that narrative. I've been very, very pleased with the Gerudo over the past couple games.
Yeah, I think they're so cool. I feel like their entire aesthetic is very cool, and it's clear that they pulled from so many different, like, cultures and different things. I think their clothing is really cute. The makeup is always great, although I will say the white lipstick always kind of throws me off whenever I see it. It looks a little weird.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think it's fun, especially because of how short Link is.
Yeah.
Seeing him interact in that environment of, like, oh, there's a cookbook, you need, like, a Gerudo woman to come and bring you a step stool to see it. And also, I don't think we really touched on it, but the schools that they have for basically teaching the women, like, for when they go out to romance a Vo, and the fact that you can, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but you can go in and help out with those as Link. And even in the first game of Breath, if you're, like, disguised as a girl, you can go in and just sit in on a class. And I just think it's funny. I also like that I believe the chalkboard in the back is literally just a picture of, like, 2 people, like, going to kiss with, like, a heart in the middle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, is that funny?
So I like that they also bring in a lot of humor around it of, like, yeah, this is kind of a crazy culture that we kind of created, but they obviously put a lot of time and effort into it and, like, have tried really hard to flesh it out, and I'm excited to see them flesh it out even more.
I mean, we'll see. Yeah. I'm sure that, I mean, the Gerudo's a clear presence at this point in the universe.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we ever saw a game without these core races again, just because of how strong people have attached to them.
Even when Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons came out, they were the next release order games after Ocarina of Time. And sure enough, even though they were just 2D sprite games, like all of a sudden the Gorons showed up in them, all of a sudden the Zora showed up in them.
Yeah.
And I guess the Gerudo kind of do, because Twin Rova shows up in those games. But even if the next proper Zelda game is I have a hankering that what Nintendo might do is the next original Zelda game might be like a quote-unquote 2D game again, just to change it up so much so that there isn't as much comparison to Breath of the Wild, but who knows?
Yeah.
Probably Ocarina of Time HD is inevitable in the next 5 years, but the next original game might be top-down. It would be interesting to see how all of these different races are represented in a game like that.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be so cool.
I also like that the Gerudo kind of went, there's a strength to their aesthetic now. You know what I mean? Where it was, in Ocarina, and it was a little bit like Jasmine from Aladdin a little bit.
Yeah.
And now it's like, these look like people that are actually warriors and stuff. It's very cool.
Yeah, and I have, I like looking into all that. I like the fact that in Tears you get to, like, organize your cavalry of women to fight for you, and yeah, I don't know. I just think it's so cool. I have, like, this is, like, I say it a quiz, but it's really just 3 questions.
Okay.
Because I couldn't find enough that we didn't talk about.
Okay.
So this is probably going to be really easy, but there's stuff that I couldn't figure out how to put in organically, but I liked it, so...
Let's do it. You're surprising me right now.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, so easy stuff. What are the terms for male and female in the Gerudo language?
Isn't it like Vo and Vi or something like that?
It's really easy.
Okay.
I
All
told
right.
you this is going to be
All
really easy, but I just wanted to put these in the episode.
Well, honestly, with my dyslexia, when I look at those things, I see the V and my eyes just skips past. So I really am not so sure. But so that one I was kind of pulling that one from the back. All right.
What sport is common in Gerudo Town?
Absolutely no idea.
Nothing?
A sport?
Yeah, it's a sport that
Is
they
it the
do in the
walrus
area.
racing?
Seal, sand seal racing.
I'm pretty sure it's walrus racing.
I was gonna say walrus. Sand seals.
Yeah, sand seal races. Okay, cool.
And this one I didn't know anything about until I looked it up. So I believe this is true. If it isn't, someone will probably correct me in the comments. But I think this is true. What race is never seen in Gerudo Town in either of the games?
Maybe the Gorons? Mm-mm. Wait. No, Zoras.
The Zoras.
Yeah.
They're never there. It's too hot for them.
Too hot. Yes.
Yeah, so they never show up. But you do see the Gorons, the Rito, and the Hylians.
Yeah, and I think a Zora, once in a while, I think I saw some Gerudo in Zora's domain.
Yeah, the Gerudo are everywhere. Mm-hmm. They travel everywhere.
The closest you ever get to Zoras and Gerudo together, I guess, is kind of Majora's Mask, when the pirates are on the ship on the side. Also, I thought it was kind of interesting to note that shortly after the Gerudo were expressed as pirates in Majora's Mask, the next game that came out, the next 3D game that came out was Wind Waker, and Tetra, aka Zelda, was a pirate. There was like a pirate culture in that game as well. No Gerudo. Ganondorf is the only Gerudo that you can see in that game. In fact, he's kind of upset because his Gerudo Desert has been flooded in Wind Waker. But I'm not, and Zelda doesn't have red hair. It's not one of these like Groose situations. But I did think it was interesting that immediately after establishing that the Gerudo were pirates, even though we've kind of gone full circle and they're back to being merchants and stuff now.
Yeah.
Zelda was a pirate.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. But anyway.
They like their pirates. Pirates are cool, though. So
there's even pirates in Tears. Yeah, a lot of pirates.
Yeah, there's a lot of pirates.
Well, I wonder if that kind of goes back to the Peter Pan roots, because Link was originally inspired by Peter Pan.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Miyamoto talks about this in interviews often. When they were thinking about the aesthetic of literally designing Link, he was queuing off of Peter Pan from Disney. He liked the look, the hat, everything.
Yeah,
they switched the hat up a little bit.
And that also goes into the whole him being in the... Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, please.
But I just saw Peter Pan, the musical, like 2 days ago.
Okay.
They came here to Chicago.
Oh, I see. In real life, yeah.
But it also just kind of ties into I believe it's the Kohiri, the kids of the forest, and them never growing up.
Never growing up.
Yeah.
That's all part of it. Link has a fairy.
Yeah.
All of it is it's all Peter Pan.
That's so cool.
Dark Link is the shadow.
Yeah.
Like, Miyamoto was very open about this. That was their original inspiration.
That's cool, though.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so, wait, how did we get on that little diatribe?
Oh, talking about pirates.
Pirates. Oh, yeah, maybe, there's some of these pirate themes that come through, right? Because there's a lot of pirates. Pirates are the kind of the main bad guys and whatnot in Peter Pan. No large alligators yet in Zelda. The largest alligator we get is Link's Awakening, and he's an artist, so I guess no problems
true.
there.
Yeah, he didn't take a hand or anything. He doesn't have a clock in him.
Yeah. So I've been very pleased with where the Gerudo are, and I like them as a race in the culture. I did want to note, I had another note here that Hylians consider the Gerudo god to be evil.
Really?
Yeah, in contrast. And so there's a little bit of tension between the Gerudo and the Hylians from a faith point of view. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't any faith think the other faith is evil, because that's the nature of believing in something like that. And so everyone has their perspective on whatever they want to have their perspective on. And so I wonder if the Gerudo have lost interest in goddess Hylia.
Yeah.
The Hylians don't believe in the 7 goddesses or the 8 goddesses and all of that, or even the statue in Ocarina of Time. And so I don't know if we see too many Gerudo. The Gerudo definitely never protect the castle. And also, it's also interesting to note that it's canonical that during Breath of the Wild, the Guardians never made it into the desert and never made it actually to Gerudo Town.
Yeah, that too, which also is obviously probably not the true thing, but I like the thought that it's kind of an Ocarina of Time situation too, where Ganon is in power. He's Gerudo. He doesn't mess with.
Oh, interesting.
Them.
And somehow that camel still got corrupted, but
yeah, and that's where it kind of falls apart, because also in Tears the Gibdos are there and all of that. So.
Well, yeah, that's true, but Gibdos aren't directly connected to Ganon or Ganondorf.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
even in Ocarina of Time, yeah, they're a separate entity.
And you could also say it's because Urbosa was the one that went to fight, so they corrupted her thing.
It would also be interesting to think to see if even in Tears, whenever Ganondorf summons his minions again, we saw Gerudo in the opening trailer. or not Gerudo. We saw Gibdos in the opening trailer, but I don't think we actually see them be the things that get spawned when he summons his baddies. Because bokoblins, goblins, and the like are usually the things that fight for Ganon in all the Zelda games. And then you have other entities that just kind of are doing their own things. Yeah. And I think the Gibdo are part of that.
Nice.
So that is interesting. I want to do a little bit more lore search on that big pyramid temple in Tears of the Kingdom, where that came from. If that's even Ganondorf inspired at all, or if it's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
I really
didn't
don't know.
Think about that. That's cool.
Maybe we have to dig down into that too. Maybe we do a Ganondorf like influences episode or something like that. You know?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I really want to do that.
So, yeah. I don't know. Any closing? Oh, oops! I'm starting to host the episode.
No. I was actually just about to ask you the same thing. If you had any other things, because I got my stuff all out of the way. I like the Gerudo. I like him a lot.
I think narratively, the writers of the Legend of Zelda series weren't set up for success with the original Gerudo storyline. I think it was probably a little bit of we could say it was an accident, you could say, or a product of the time. And I think that the writers over at Nintendo over the years have done a fantastic job with the Gerudo.
Yes.
And they really bring him into in a place that's pretty interesting. And I like this point that you brought up where kind of the Yiga clan becomes the new bad guys.
Yeah, and also on top of that, with the Yiga clan, you can even say, like, they kind of learned their lesson from the Gerudo in a way, because, like you said, like, you can't tell if they're male or female. You can't tell what race they are. They're all different body types. They're all... So it even goes into... It's like, it's not directed at anyone in particular. It's just, like, they are this group of people that do these things.
They're the Foot Clan.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. David, if they want to find you, where can they find you?
Who? The Gerudo?
No, the people listening.
I know. I just was playing around.
wish I could have the Gerudo find me. They're so cool.
Gotta go into the desert. You gotta
but
follow
it's so
the winds.
hot.
Watch the flags. Use the lens of truth.
No.
You don't know what that means yet, I'm thinking.
No.
Remember that when we were playing Ocarina. A little hint there.
Okay.
Yeah, if people want to find me on the internet, I'm at Raptor Paint on Twitter and Instagram and Threads and all the things. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, cool. If you want to find me, you can find me at Mind of Kady, Kady, on Instagram, or my website, kadyroberts.com. And if you want to find Another Zelda podcast, well, hey, you're already listening, so you're part of the way there. You can find Another Zelda podcast wherever you get your podcasts. But also, we are Another Zelda pod on pretty much every social media site.
Another Zelda pod only on Twitter /
Only on Twitter,
X,
and
but
then-
we're Another Zelda podcast on everything else.
Yeah, okay. I swapped them around.
Yep.
And yeah, also Another Zelda podcast website. So you can go on there, see all the different backlogs of stuff, and also look and see everyone that works on the team, which is kind of cool.
Indeed. And hopefully we'll see you again in 2 weeks. This is our penultimate episode, but our Season 6 finale will be the next episode, in which we'll be listening to and perusing the music of Link's Awakening, both the 1993 version and the 2019 version.
It's going to be so good, guys.
I'm looking forward to it. I've got the files queued up, Kady. Cool. Well, until then, I guess we'll see you all. Kady, thank you so much for having me on the show, Kady.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's been great to be here.
Oh, it's been so great. All right, bye-bye.